welcome to a brand new episode of SentinelOne presents ET Studios, Redefining Cybersecurity in association with ETCISO. The topic that we are spotlighting today is cyber resilience, preparing for the unthinkable. It's my absolute pleasure to host our renowned panelists of the day, Archit Rajesh, Head of Product and Information Security, Team Lead Services Limited. Hello and welcome, Archit.
Hello.
Thank you so much for joining us. We have Arun Raja Karthik, Head IT Services and Security, TTDC Express Limited. Thank you for sharing your time with us. Thank you. And we have Divakar Dayal, MD SentinelOne. Welcome, Diva. Now, let me start off with the topic. Cyber resilience is popularly defined as the ability to anticipate, withstand, recover from, and adapt to adverse conditions, stresses, attacks, or compromises on systems that use or are enabled by cyber resources. But personally, in your experience, since you are the professionals, if I want you to define cyber resilience with 3 keywords, what would they be for you? Archit, would you take this first?
So cyber resilience, there's undoubtedly, that's the ongoing wave. Most cybersecurity leaders and practitioners, I think they are focusing on cyber resilience as a more overarching and more comprehensive outlook rather than just reducing themselves to cybersecurity. And I think if you look at some of the standardized frameworks, like something as popular as a NIST framework, I think they have very clearly laid out uh, identify, protect, detect, respond, and recover. So, largely, when you ask me to say 3 words, I think these are the key 5 words that have already been very clearly laid out that defines the entire geometry of cyber resilience. The way I would put it is that, right? Because identify, of course, you have to first figure out that what are those potential threats, what are those potential risks that could stand relevant to your business context, your risk context. After that, of course, once you've identified, then you need to detect and protect your assets against these detected threats, and that's where the cybersecurity stops, and then comes response and your recovery. Right, that's more around the cyber resilience aspect of it, because yes, accidents will happen regardless of whatever kind of protection you have in place, and when they happen, how do you respond to them, how do you recover from them? That's about resilience. So I think these are the 5 keywords. Picking up straight from the NIST framework would be my take.
That's covered all the bases, I feel. But Diva, would you like to come in?
Yeah, I think I'll keep it very simple. I guess it's about really being prepared, right? Being agile, which also means you got to be adaptable, and most importantly, being able to collaborate.
Now, what are the must have security measures in the present day enterprise to achieve cyber resilience? I would love for you to come in on this, Arun.
When we start speaking about resilience, right, so it's all about data. How we ensure that the data has been protected and saved. It all starts from the awareness. Okay, when we speak security, security is everyone's responsibility. Now, it doesn't a responsibility of an CISO or an security professional alone. It is a responsibility of every individual. It can be in an organization or to the public, for that matter. Today, security in that perspective. So we should start creating any measures which, from creating and training and awareness to the user community, and start laying down the principles in terms of how I'm going to approach the security practice for the organization. It can be creating a policy, it can be training, it can be adopting to a framework. Like Rachit rightly mentioned, NIST is one of the famous framework which does the job to the deed, and it helps us an organization a no-brainer to create the measure in such a wonderful way. So any layman who comes in, or even the board people who just gets in, barge in and see what is that as the framework, anyone can understand. You could able to grab, okay, how to identify a problem, mitigate it, recover from a problem. Okay, the measures should start from creating an policy for training, awareness, and then laying down to the approach of framework. The framework also should consider how I will bounce back a kind of a problem occurs. So measure should definitely have a response matrix. IRT team, IRP plan, all this should be in place. And that's a way I see the measure can be approached for any kind of insecurity issue.
Thank you for sharing your perspective. Archit?
I think very nicely explained, by him. I would just complement it that I think organizations and practitioners can clearly take a two-pronged approach, right? The first prong talks about deploying countermeasures against threats and risks that can't fail. But at the same time, the other prong, you should be bringing in measures uh, for deployment. What if your first prong fails? Of course, these days, I think putting in state of the art EDRs and your perimeter fencing and those kind of advanced measures is not new. But I think what people and practitioners should really focus on is uh, is clearly the right recovery mechanisms. So I'm talking about very clearly whether it's your data recovery, whether it's your asset recovery, and these recovery mechanisms has to be tying in very tightly with your business prospects, with your business priorities. That's where that tandem needs to happen, because of course there's no point in having a backup mechanism which of course checks the mark, but then still doesn't resonates well with your business priorities. So I think that's how I will put it.
Well, thank you for that. Since I have you here, you lead SentinelOne. I would love to get your thoughts about the recent security incidents that have been stemming from cyber attacks that have been crippling day to day operations, such as the Mumbai power grid attack, the AIMS incidents, or Colonial Pipeline. Now, how do you view cyber resilience in the wake of all these incidents?
Clearly, I think when we look at this from a larger uh, perspective of over 2, 3 decades, you could see that resilience was simply about a couple of machines going offline for a couple of hours and maybe losing a couple of $100,000. But today, if you look at the impact cyber attacks are causing, it's really, we're losing human lives, disruption of services, critical infrastructure being down, a complete dissemination of either business or country and economics, right? So we've gone from one end of the spectrum in terms of impact to a completely at the other end. And the frequency and the intensity is just getting worse by the day, it's getting worse by the decade. I think to the earlier points about resilience, there is an opportunity to really look closely in terms of the preparedness, in terms of really the IR plans, and in terms of really how do you recover from a real, incident which can sometimes convert into a breach. And the way I kind of look at it is organizations, right, with IT teams and security teams who come in every day. And if they were to be told that today you will have an incident which may become a breach, what would be a response? And if the response is that I'm going to be, scrambling around to figure out what's the next step, that tells you that they're really not at the resilience curve where they need to be. Versus, hey, we know the drill, right? We know the next steps, and we will surely be able to manage this to ensure that business comes back to normalcy. I think that's the spectrum of resilience that we are going towards. And for that, you really need a very mature process, people, and of course, platforms to just make sure that they're not handling this from a war footing approach on a daily, weekly, monthly basis, because that's simply not scalable.
You need playbooks that you can go back to. Absolutely. And especially with so many attacks, you can just have you can't just have a plan B. You need to have like a plan Z, I think, at this point.
Absolutely, right? Because they're not, it's very difficult to predict when they will happen. And hence, you have to be always prepared, but at the same time, have a calmness and serenity, which comes from really great preparation.
Absolutely. Now, in cybersecurity's never ending cat and mouse game with hackers and grifters, the threats are always evolving. What do you believe to be the biggest cybersecurity threat, either present or evolving? Arun, go ahead.
Probably, I feel like many of you would have heard about this in the very recent past. More we speak AI, Gen AI, that becomes more uh, dangerous as days coming. And I feel it is an evolving threat. So probably Diva would be little taken back also. We are using AI to solve all your problem in terms of technology, and you are calling out it as a threat. Yes, while we are using lot of artificial intelligence driven solutions to solve the primary problems, but as on date we don't have a proper or structured approach how this AI can be adopted. What is the mechanism any threats through AI can be addressed. Okay, I mean, we are addressing threats using AI, but AI by itself is becoming as a threat. How are we going to handle it? So that is an unexplored area in the industry or outworld there. So that needs more focus in coming days. The ISO have came up with a separate standard for how do we monitor AI, but that up to the world to adopt, and it's going to take its own time. Uh, I just quote with an example, right? We would have heard about deepfake the recent days. Without quoting the organization, the incident happened in Hong Kong very recently, $25 billion duped just by using deepfake technology, right? Days and past, AI becoming more dangerous in the threat vectors. So that's my perspective on the what we need to handle in the coming days.
Okay. AI, the biggest threat. Do the two of you agree?
To me, I'll give you a little bit of a boring answer. I think even today, we still see unpatched systems with ransomwares that we know of with different variants uh, going after using social engineering, right? So that threat continues. And I have seen this, I think, 20 years back, 10 years back, it's still the same, right? It's just different jargons and different fancy names, but it's still human errors, right? Systems that are legacy that could not be patched for whatever reasons, and then you just need one bad file, right, to figure out. But yeah, given specifically, I think weaponized AI is really kind of become difficult, given the just the scope of what do you call automation of attacks, personalization of attacks, and acceleration of attacks, right? So they can automate it, right? They can really go after who they want, and they can be relentless about it with really not much effort.
All of us, I feel at this point, have been, subject to these calls, these very convincing spam calls, which I think are propelled by AI. So I think we've all been victims of that at some level, and they've all reached out to us. And you're right, it's permeating society in a big manner.
I call the was threat as like a classic threats.
Hmm.
Okay, so those are all classic threat ever there,
Uh-huh.
and it will continue to be there. I don't see an end state for it.
Okay, you feel that comes from natural intelligence as well.
I mean, those things we cannot avoid. I
Okay.
mean, we can never leave the legacy behind just like that. Okay, so today's legacy, if we are parking it out, and tomorrow's new technology is going to be the day after tomorrow legacy. So legacy follows. So the threat remains same. How we going to handle it in future is what something we're going to work out.
All right. Now, what do you think is the biggest threat?
I certainly agree, all hands down, with Arun that AI is going to be the biggest threat in very near times and in distant future as well. Uh, Primarily for two reasons. One is that the technology is really becoming democratic increasingly with each passing moment, I would say, and not even by each passing day. Uh, Today, you have, just like you say, a hobby coder, trying to develop new viruses, new malicious programs. It's very easy. It's very accessible. Second is that if I have to break down the history of cyber attacks and cyber defense and all this cyber in last 3 decades, I would say that the first decade was the age of invasion. It was all about malicious hackers and threat vectors trying to actually take benefit from a loophole and then invade territory. Then came in the age of orchestration. That means you induce vulnerabilities and then you exploit that. And the age that we are currently in is age of deception, right? That means uh, you don't really know what the reality is and what's fake. uh, it's very, very, very easy to actually really frame somebody into thinking that the attack is coming from this direction while the actual attack happens from somewhere else, right? And now the culmination of both these two aspects, AI fuels them both. AI clearly fuels the democratization of technology and the age of deceptions. That's the reason I believe very strongly that AI is going to be a very powerful threat in the coming times. And of course, like Arun said, there needs to be frameworks and rules and policies defined for its proper governance and usage.
Well, as you mentioned, AI is being tapped into by the malicious actors, and they're the early adopters, and they're all out there. How well do you feel AI has been tapped into for the defense?
I think it's a race between malicious, actors, and of course the good white people that we're talking about. Uh, Democratization of technology. So of course, everybody has access to everything. If you have got the black hats using these to create state-of-the-art ransomwares, yes, AI is increasingly used by state-of-the-art defense systems. You talk about modern-day ADR systems. I'll just use this because I think it's pretty fresh in my mind and very convenient. Uh, Go 5 years back, and you had signature-based antiviruses, right, where you would rely on a kind of a directory of signatures, and then you will verify those potential threats against those verify. I think it was more about dealing with indicators of compromise, right, IOC. So of course you will intercept once a compromise has happened. The modern day systems, the EDRs, are all about IOAs, indicators of attack. Now, the only way you can actually preempt an attack, or even translate that perhaps an attack is happening, is only with the usage of all these AI algorithms. So I think yes, it's going to be a never-ending race between the white hats and the black hats. But yes, I'm very happy to see the increasing use of AI in the modern day cyber defense systems.
Okay, I think this is a good time to bring Diva in. I think it's pertinent. So, Diva, go ahead. How well are you tapping into AI?
Well, I mean, we came up with this 10 years back when people thought we were smoking something, right? Back in Israel, when the technology was founded, I think our CEO, Tomer, was very clear that the traditional approach of using signatures or even the cloud is never going to cut it. Right? And I think we were way ahead of seeing this curve than anybody else. And clearly, today, everybody claims that they are an AI-based platform, AI-based product. And yes, it's easy to just claim that, right? The reality is, to his point, is being able to see how the industry is going to grapple with, inability to use humans as, a kind of bring them into defense and use an autonomous platform that can help you not just protect and defend, but also basically, all the way into remediation and bring you back to normality, right? Normalcy. And I think that's the aspect of really looking at, automated defense mechanisms, platforms to help the entire life cycle of business resilience. And as a company, we started that at endpoint, and today we do that everything beyond endpoint all the way to cloud and whatever else. And I guess that may be the only way today to really help, address this issue that he said, where we're getting democratized at one end, where the adversaries or the hackers have no guardrails, right? They have no ethics, they have no rules, they have no HR. They don't have work days and holidays. You don't have to apply for leave. They can, it's free, right? Literally, it's a jungle out there. And then we have the defenders who have all the rules on their side. And to Arun's point, we still haven't had the right frameworks that organizations can adopt and say, hey, listen, I may have a tool that is using AI to help me defend, but what is my strategy across my organization to really, guardrail AI and give me the empowerment? So yes, the answers are here, but we still haven't got the clarity that we need as we move forward.
But it's good to know that the good guys are also working on AI very actively for quite some time now.
So that's why sometimes I call this a cyber war.
Yeah.
Good guy on other side trying to create the guardrails and stop everything, and bad guy has nothing. Just keep hitting you and never ending
Nothing
story.
to lose. Yeah, absolutely.
So in
Yeah.
a way, Deva wanted to point out that while the recipe is here, the cake is still in the oven, maybe.
Well, that's a great way of putting it indeed. Now, Arun, I would like to take this next question to you. How do you foster a culture of cybersecurity awareness among your teams, ensuring that security is not an afterthought, but actually an integral part of the development process?
I just go back to my earlier statement, right? Security is not an one-man job. Security is everyone's responsibility. So we build a culture, a platform where it becomes into the DNA of any employee into the organization. So it starts from inducting, training, awareness, and this is supposed to be a day in, day out job. It is not like I do it in a year, then I'm going to take a rest for the rest of the day in the year, so that next year the training comes, so I go and get that trained. Like security is going to be an everyday job, everyone's job. So it has to come from a culture where an awareness being created from the day you step into an organization and how it flows till the end. So birth to death in an organization, security should be stitched into the DNA. So that's a way I see, and training and awareness makes a big impact into the culture.
Well, yes, indeed, needs to be embedded in the culture for sure. And now, with threat vectors being greater more than ever, talk to us about the need to move away from compliance to more proactive security measures.
Wow, this is something I would have always loved to talk about, because I think I've seen a lot of practitioners asking this question that, should I go after compliance or should I go after my own priorities? And if I want to do both, how do we really balance? And I think it's often very talked about everywhere. I think it's important to understand that compliance is nothing but it's the minimum viable framework for your business context or for your risk context, right? I mean, just think about, of course, we talk about compliance. A speed sign on a road, to comply with that, is actually a compliance, right? However, imagine you driving a sports bike and you do not have the right sports gear, then that, despite you following the compliance, you fall off and you're gone, right? So because while compliance will only ensure the minimum viable standard, because of course that needs to be uniform across the entire ecosystem, you need to understand what is your specific business context and what is your specific risk context. That's where you need to dawn on controls that are more relevant to you. So I think definitely compliance is a must thing, but that's not just what you should stick on. It's important to do a proper risk assessment and then mitigate the risks that are relevant to you, right? So I think, and I think if you do a proper risk assessment, I can't imagine a situation where you have mitigated the risks that are relevant for you, but you are not meeting the compliance. I don't think that that's a statement. I mean, that's a situation that can happen actually.
Okay,
Just,
that makes sense. Sure,
just picking up from there, I mean, suddenly came to my brain like exactly this one size doesn't fit all, right? The compliance, the compliance applicable for organization A, it's not exactly to the organization B. So we should assess the risk for us and come up with the proper mitigation plan. And so uh, one has a Ferrari and the gears for Ferrari might be different, and one who drive Maruti with no gears is a different, right? So the compliance will help you to structure it, but one who has performing that compliance has to assess what exactly gets me into that and then fix it appropriately so that I'm compliant, secured.
That's very true. Now, let me pick your brain some more. What is one emerging cybersecurity trend that you are most bullish on?
I think because I spoke about AI very clearly, I think it's going to be the usage of AI, and very clearly, while this question talks more about the cybersecurity aspect, AI is going to be transforming the entire technology, and that's where I think, personally, I'm going to be very bullish on AI when it comes to cybersecurity, because I think in one of the previous responses, they were also very clearly talk about that, while AI earlier was more about detection technologies, but now AI is also getting into, your entire IT supply chain. How you can actually automatically recover and how you can actually transform your entire cyber resiliency program through AI, right? So I mean, we talk about self-healing frameworks, right? So now self-healing frameworks is a fantastic example of AI that, in event of a breach or any catastrophe, how automatically AI can actually pick up that what are the problems in those areas and can start healing itself. So I think definitely, while we are still yet to explore a lot of avenues there, but AI is something that I'm personally most bullish on.
All right. What about you, Arun?
Probably I have two.
Now you've added AI to it.
No, AI was there from the day one.
Okay.
You know, so definitely, so AI is one, and I'm not touch basing it. He covered exactly what I was resonating, right? The second, what was I'm going through in terms of was zero trust. So don't trust anything. That's what zero trust all mean. A device, an employee, an workplace, a network. So how in the zero trust process and policy we going to structure out that going to define even how I'm going to adopt AI in terms of solving my problem or healing my problem in future. So for that matter, I feel AI and zero trust is going to. I mean, I'm most bullish on.
Okay. And what about you, Diva?
Oh, you got to fight machines with machines, right? Because machine speed attacks require machine speed response. And I think on autonomous platform, right, which is AI driven, which helps security and IT teams protect, defend, remediate, and respond in real time with as least human intervention, is I think the opportunity that we have as an industry to help overcome the challenges that lie before us, irrespective of the vectors, irrespective of technologies that are coming in and really hitting us. I guess it's just time for us to use AI for a greater good. And I believe SentinelOne as a company has stood for in the industry as somebody who operates with a greater sense of greater good.
All right, I'll let you end on that optimistic note. It's been fantastic hosting all three of you. It's been a very fun and informative discussion. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you so much for watching, and for more such insightful episodes, remember to stay tuned to SentinelOne presents ET Studios Redefining Cybersecurity in association with ETCISO.